Good morning, guys. Good morning, good morning, good morning. All right, we're going to be starting this one in 2 minutes. Getting some delicious music here to get us started for the morning. So let us know if you're coming in live, guys. And we're going to come in with a hard-hitting episode for you here on the Better Body Academy podcast. So what's going on, guys? How was your week? Let me know. Let me know in the comments. How's things going? Good morning, Ez. How are you? Nicky boy, what's going on? Oh, look at these kings coming in. Live on Facebook, watching on. I love it. Good morning, Nicola. How are you, my man? Hello, Emmy. How are you, girl? Benny Porter, what's going on, Benny? You are getting super consistent, my man. I like it. All right, we're going to go live on Instagram as well. So we can bring in our IG crowd. So good morning, Alex. Are you guys next to each other in the gym? It's very cool. Good morning, Instagram. How are you? All right. So good to hear, Em. Good to hear. My gosh, your little baby's cute too, Ems. Good morning, Holty. How are you, my man? All right, guys, we might get ready to rock for this episode. Hey, Scotty, how are you, brother? So to those of you that are watching on other platforms, we're live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Better Body Academy groups, Instagram. It's all going on. So I think we're going to get this episode started. So let's fade this out slowly and nicely before we start banging. Okay, so... I like it, Em. I like it. Good morning, Jimmy. All right, guys, let's kick off this episode. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Welcome back to the Better Body Academy podcast, the podcast that you come to when you are sick of the dumb diets and unsustainable workout programs. We are live across many, I think it's 10 platforms now, including LinkedIn, YouTube, all of the Facebook, all of the Instagram for you guys, and really trying to take this big, get our message out to the world, which is that you do not need to go on another dumb diet. You do not need to work out in the gym 17 times a week. You just need to do the basics right. What we want to do is get rid of all the bro science. That's the whole goal of this podcast, to get rid of the dumb bro science that's kind of stuck up here on social media platforms by steroid boys. I'm probably going to cop some shit for that, but I don't care. I'm very clear in what I stand for, and that's helping the everyday man and woman find some better health. And on that note, if you get value out of this podcast, I'd love nothing more than a review on the Apple podcast player platform. If you're able to do that, you'll be entering yourself in to win $300 along with any other listeners that enter in or screenshot this and share it to their stories. So in today's episode, what we are going to be talking about is a very provocative concept or question. Have you even measured it, mate? Go on, get the ruler out. Have you even measured it? So I want to be talking about this idea, and some of the lady listeners might be thinking to themselves, oh gosh, what is he on about? How am I going to do this? And some of the men might be going to a dirty word. I honestly tell you that this is not about measuring what you think it is. I want to talk to you about measuring some metrics in your business, your relationships, and your fitness journey. Okay. Now, let me go back. In a previous life, I'm going to talk, let's say, before COVID, maybe 4 years ago, 3 to 4 years ago was the finish of it. But for the previous sort of 12 to 15 years, I worked as a sales director. And as a sales director, my goal was basically to motivate a sales team. Okay. Now, one of the ways, if anyone is involved in sales or income generation in their business, one of the things you have to do to try and help out performance of people is to talk to them about incentives, performance incentives, and whether that's by way of a commission or bonuses, it doesn't really matter. One of the ways that we used to help our sales consultants out was putting targets in front of them. And one of the things that my boss, when I went to him for a sales incentive approval, one of the things that he always used to say to me was, Jace, all right, okay, how are we going to measure the change in result. I think what a lot of businesses do is that they throw money at problems. They don't really know what they're trying to achieve, and therefore they don't know if the money that they threw at the problem was beneficial or not. How many of you in this, in viewing here or watching on the pod later on, how many of you are involved in business, or you have made the mistake of throwing money at a problem before and not really understanding the root of the problem that you're trying to solve? And I think this is a way that people who are not yet truly ready to change think about coming into a transformation, a physical transformation. They go from shiny object to shiny object to shiny object, not actually understanding, like, what am I trying to fix here? So my boss used to always say to me, right, where are we at? Where are we currently at? What are the extra benefits that we're going to get as a business as a result of putting on this incentive? What would be the cost of the incentive? And therefore, would that be worth investing in? Because if you end up shelling out a bunch of money to just get the same thing back, then that's kind of a waste of money, right? If you're just looking at things in a simple term. And so he used to educate me in this idea that what is measured gets managed. Type that in the box. If you're in the Better Body Academy, type this in the comments box. What is measured gets managed. Ironically, the people that type this in the box are probably the ones that are going to be very compliant with this idea. I got to say, guys, I hated it. I hated when he always used to come back to me with, okay, cool. Before we get all excited about this incentive, Jace, tell me what it's going to cost me. Tell me where we're at. Tell me where we're trying to get to. And he just to pull it apart, and it annoyed the shit out of me. And you know why it annoyed the shit out of me? Because it was, in my opinion, a lot of extra hard work. That was the reality. All those extra steps that he wanted to know that data was to try to, I just interpreted that a lot of the time, especially early on, as like, this is so much extra hard work. I'm just so busy. I just want to get to the thing. But he wanted all this data to start. So I'd have to put in place tracking systems. I'd need to see if we were moving towards the goal that we were trying to achieve, and there'd be different milestones along the way. And we'd need to know if we were behind, we'd obviously have to kick some ass as sales managers. And if we're in front, then it would be a matter of like, okay, we're doing great, guys, keep pushing. But ultimately, it put the stick on me as the sales manager to not only look at results, but look at what actions I was taking. What actions I was taking as the person that was meant to be driving this. And what things that I needed to do to be able to change the result. Okay? And it became an evidence-based platform for a discussion between me and my boss, who you could change boss and interchange that for coach. And you can probably see where I'm going with this, about my performance. It became evidence for my performance. What was I doing good? What was I not doing so good? And how was that impacting upon the results? And while I hated the extra detail, the business grew. And we repeated anything that was working, and we chopped anything that wasn't working. Now, why is this interesting? Why should you even care? Why should you continue to listen to this podcast? Okay, well, let's talk about your transformation. Let's talk about your transformation. Start with, whether you've started or not, are you happy with where you are? Are you happy with your results? Ask yourself the question. Don't just passively listen. Ask yourself the question. Are you happy with your results? Whether the answers are yes or a no, do you feel like you know what has caused the result? Do you feel like you know what the actions that you've taken are that have actually got you the result, that have led to the result? Now, in a physical transformation, I've just got some example questions that as a coach, I would ask you. So interpret that as, ask these to yourself now, okay? What's your current weight? Do you know it? Your waist circumference and your hip circumference. Anyone in the Better Body Academy will probably know that, unless they haven't been accountable to themselves doing their check-ins. But what's your current weight, waist circumference, hip circumference? How many days did you train last week? What did you train? How many reps and weights of each exercise did you lift? Now, obviously, you're not going to be able to record that, but have you entered the data into the app? How has that changed over time? Are you getting stronger or not? How many calories did you consume over the past 7 days? Where was your protein at for the past 7 days? Which training module inside of the Better Body Academy are you up to? These are all pieces of data, okay? And when you're going well, there are people that come into our academy, as you guys and girls know, that don't do any of those things. They don't track the data, but they do really, really well. And at that point, they don't really care about the data. They know that they're just doing well. They're just working really hard. But when things aren't going good, there's usually a reason for it. And we want to be able to explain that reason, right? Because if we don't understand the reason, what happens? We just get frustrated. And what happens when we get frustrated in a fitness transformation? We give up. And what happens when we give up? We send the message to ourselves that we're not the type of person that follows through on what we say we're going to do. So it's not just the fact that you gave up, it's the fact that you said you were going to do something, but then gave up, and then that sends a message to your subconscious mind about who you actually are as an identity. You see, it's a little bit deeper than, I just gave up. Repeatedly giving up forms this association in your subconscious mind with who you are, what that says about you. So when things aren't going well, that's when we should care, because we want to be able to understand why they're not going well. If you have no money, okay, now this is a different sideways example. If you have no money, do you know why you have no money? It's usually a spending problem. But if you don't know what you're spending the money on, then how can you know where to save the money? So this concept of what's measured gets managed is profound, in my opinion. So, okay, let's step back from this one, guys. Let's ask ourselves, firstly, I want a kind of a show of hands in the comments of this live. Like, do we understand fundamentally the power of this data? If we have more inputs, do we kind of understand? So if we understand why these are beneficial, okay, and we've got all the boys watching live saying what's measured gets managed, perfect. If we know all of these things, why do we not do it? If we know that knowing the numbers and knowing the inputs are going to change our business, they're going to change our results, they're going to change our life. If we know these things, why do we not do it? I've got a couple of reasons I would suggest. Because it's hard. It requires discipline, doesn't it? Instagram. It's hard. Like, it's hard and requires discipline. To track your nutrition on MyFitnessPal, that requires discipline. And it's hard. And it can be annoying. But it's hard. Because it means that it requires you to take ultimate accountability. Ultimate accountability. Because this was a big one for me. And even still now, I would say that this is still the case. Because we fear what it might expose about us and our commitment level. For example, I was once asked to do what's called a time in motion study. Has anyone ever done a time in motion study? A time in motion study is where you write down on a kind of like, you have a pad next to your table and you write down everything that you do in the day. And you don't say, I just farted, I smiled. You write down what you're dedicating tasks to, okay? And every half an hour or so, you just take a block and you write down what you actually do. And what it causes you to do is understand where you're losing all your time. The act of doing that, it's almost like we're happy to say that we've got no time, but if we shine the light on where we're spending our time, it will expose true accountability. And we kind of don't want to admit that to ourselves. Would you agree? We don't really want to admit how much we're doing and where we're spending our time. And probably a fourth reason is because we're so reluctant to think about the long-term benefit. Like, Humans are we're geared towards avoiding short-term pain and trying to get bought into kind of, come on, it's all about now and you should live your life and you do these things, and at the detriment of any long-term benefit. So there are a few reasons. It's hard. It requires discipline. It means you're taking accountability. It might expose the truth about where you're doing stuff. And because it's hard, in the short term, it causes pain. But if I ask you these questions right now, okay, and we're kind of coming to a crescendo in this podcast, guys. If I ask you these 3 questions right now, I want to know in the comments, if you're watching along live, I want to know yes or no. Yes or no. It's a black and white answer, okay? Do you want better health? Do you want better health? Yes or no in the comments. Doesn't matter where you're watching this or listening to this. Do you want better health? Second question. Do you want more money? Do you want more money? Do you want more money? Honestly. You don't need to be embarrassed about the answer. Do you want more money? Cool. I'm not seeing any no's here at all. There's no no's. I'm getting yes. I'm getting a grade of yes, yep, and fuck yes. Okay. Do you want more money? Yes. Okay, perfect. Do you want a better relationship? Even if your relationship's good, that's fine. Or if you're not in a relationship, do you want to be in a loving relationship? The reason I'm asking these specific 3 questions is these are the 3 markets, we call them: health, wealth, and relationships. Health, wealth, and relationships. Do you want better health? Do you want more money? Do you want better relationships, whether they're romantic relationships or they're friend relationships? I think the answer is an unconditional yes to all of these things, right? Of course. So the follow-up question is, but at what cost? Like, what's the payoff? What's the payoff? The cost for me is like, well, to measure what you're actually doing and actually managing that. Like, that's the payoff. That's the reason why we're not all rich. That's the reason why we don't have a 6-pack. That's the reason we don't all have great relationships. Because we probably haven't asked ourselves, like, what are we doing? What's the actions that we're taking? And if you measured what you do with your time, rather than just answering, oh, I'm just too busy, what would actually happen is you'd know where your time was being spent. And then you'd probably assign some time to the higher priority items. Remember when I said back at the start of this episode that I didn't want to track all the stats around the sales incentive? I didn't want to do it. Why? Because it was extra work. I just wanted to, honestly, guys, I just wanted to hit and hope. I just wanted to give it my best. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to give it my best. So in other words, I wanted to work really hard, but not necessarily with any accountability or efficiency. How many of us are doing that inside of the Better Body Academy with our transformation? I don't want to track all these things because I think it's kind of counterintuitive and it gets my mindset wrong, and actually translate that as in, I care, but I don't care that much. And that's okay. That's not a criticism. That's okay. John Timmons, and he's always the guy that we talk about here because I know the way that he went about his transformation, which is close to a 40-kilo fat loss transformation. And there's many guys like Mark Edmondson, and there's guys like Travis Sanderlin, and there's people like Linda and Carly, and all these people inside the Women's Academy that have done transformations that will blow your mind, right? One of the features was that they were diligent to the process, not the outcome. I'll say that again. They were diligent to the process, not the outcome. If you're diligent to the outcome, if you're focused around the outcome, what are the outcomes that we want? Fat loss, muscle gain, better endurance, strength. These are things that we all want. They're an outcome. How much can you change the outcome in itself? Zero. You can do nothing about the outcome. Go over to this side, the actions, looking at what am I actually doing? Take the shit away. What am I doing? And you focus everything on that side. It takes the pressure off yourself, actually, because you just say to yourself, well, if I just do those things, the outcome will take care of itself. I can't control the outcome. How can I control the outcome? How can I control the rate at which fat leaves my body? How can I control the rate at which my muscles build? How can I control the rate of strength development? The time of which I can do a kilometer run? I can't control those things. They're intangibles. I can control these things here. Rather than hitting and hoping, if we focus on measuring the inputs, that's going to change the outputs big time. I love the quote, success leaves cues. So does failure. And this is the reason why failing is good, actually, because it gives us data. It gives us data on what did and didn't work. If you never fail, you don't get the data. But if you fail, you get the data, and then you can do something with the data and turn that into a success. But if you don't get the data, this is why most people never do anything, is because they don't fail. We've got to embrace the failure. If you have no feedback on where you're going wrong, you could be really working hard on the wrong thing. For example, everyone thinks that the key to earning more money the key to having more money is earning more money. But more often than not, the accountant will tell you that it's a spending problem. It's not an earning problem. And I know that's definitely true for me. It's definitely a spending problem. I go to the store and I just buy things. like it's a spending problem. It's not an earning problem. Most people use the reasoning, I have no time, as the reason they can't start a transformation, right? I've got two pieces of feedback if you've got no time. One is a harsh reality, and I'm pretty much pulling no punches in this podcast, guys. You actually have the same amount of time, right? You actually have the same amount of time. How can anyone have more time? It's 168 hours in a week. You've got the same amount of time as the person next to you. The difference is, how are you spending your time? Now, I can definitely relate to the idea that some people have more responsibilities or more difficult responsibilities than others. So, for example, one of my favorite clients is I'm going to shout her out, Christy. She is an amazing human being, but she's a single mum, right? And that's tough because she's got kids and she's a single mum and she needs to work and there's things going on there. But when Christy took back ownership over her time and started to prioritize herself and the things that actually matter, all of a sudden things change. And the kicker to this statement is focusing on a transformation. If you have the mindset of I got no time, that's most often built upon the idea that you need lots of time to train. I need lots of time to train. If I can't train 7 days a week and be at the gym for an hour and a half, I might as well not do it. That's like so untrue. It's not funny for two reasons. I train personally 4.5 hours a week total. Okay. Number two, so that leaves 163 hours left, 164 hours left, right? But more importantly, I understand that nutrition, for someone who's looking to lose some fat, nutrition is the number one thing. So to all of those of you that are watching, that are responsible for cooking dinner for your family, ask yourself the question, like honestly ask yourself the question, does it take any longer to cook a high calorie meal than a low calorie meal? Does it take any longer? So even if you didn't train at all, which would be completely understandable, because you're just too busy, because you've got other priorities, or you hate the gym, or you hate training. you can still do a transformation because nutrition is 80% of it. And it doesn't take you any longer to cook a shit meal than it does a really, really good meal that's going to feed your family and bring the best out of them. If you're inside of the academy, guys, and we're winding this one up, and you aren't as a minimum doing your weekly check-ins, then it's kind of a level of self-sabotage there, because you're coming into the academy to hit the goals that you want to hit, 10 kilos fat loss, 20 kilos fat loss, get stronger, whatever you're doing. But then we've got no data to understand what you're actually doing. So if you're not as a minimum doing your check-ins, then how can we work with you as a coach to be able to point you in the right direction? And so I'll leave you with this kind of final point, guys. And that is that fat loss is actually really simple, really simple. It's almost a numbers game. It's really simple. However, the process of fat loss, of achieving fat loss, is complicated. Why? Because we humans are emotional creatures, right? And actually the hard thing is that we probably all know what we need to do, right? We all know what we need to do, but we just can't figure out how to get ourselves to do the thing that we know we need to do. And that's true of me as well. I'm far from faultless with this, right? Getting yourself to do the things that you know you need to do, but you don't feel like doing, this is the essence of transformation. Understanding how to lose fat is actually quite simple. It's getting yourself to do the things you don't feel like doing. And this is why trying to do things yourself is really hard. I've been on a call this morning with another business coach to help me through my next level. I'm going to share more about that in perhaps coming days, but this idea of being self-made is a fraud. No one is self-made. No one is self-made. So if you engage a coach and you're willing to kind of say, look, this is what I'm currently doing. How can you help me do these things better? And then you're willing to measure results along the way, you will lose fat. And so if the answer to one of your questions above, which was, would you like better health? And the answer is yes, I can promise you, you can do it. You can lose 10, 20, 30 kilos or more. You can change your body and your life completely. And ironically, you get the physical element right, and it compounds onto the relationship and the money. I cannot tell you. I have, again, one of my favorite clients who lost 20 kilos. He came to me originally to sell his business because it was tanking and he was sick of working endless hours. I can't do this anymore. I've had enough. Jace, get me in shape so I can work intensely for a year, get the revenue up, and then once the revenue's at the top of its game, I can sell it for a decent sale price. Guess what happened? He earned the same amount of money in 3 months than he did in the previous 12 months in the depths of COVID. Why? Because he lost 20 kilograms. How does that help? We had more energy and he felt better about himself. You come into the academy and you quickly understand that fat loss is just, the physical is just the doorway to so much more. And when you open up the door and you understand that earning more money, feeling better in your relationships, feeling more content and happy starts to unravel itself and become a little bit more clear once you feel better within yourself. Does that make sense? So guys, I got on a bit of a tangent there, and you can probably tell my passion coming through in this project. I'm just like every waking hour I'm alive. I'm just thinking about like, how do we get through to people that you do not need another dumb diet, another unsustainable workout program? And that's the mission of the Better Body Academy. So I'm going to leave it there, guys. Thank you so much for listening. If you got value out of this episode, please screenshot this one or give us a rating on the Apple Podcast player. You'll be entered into the draw to win $300 at the end of November. I look forward to you in the next podcast. Ciao. See you later, Instagram. Ciao.